Hello, this is Refresh, and I'm here to bring you a battle between two Aether Revolt Planeswalker decks and the Battle of the Horde challenge deck from Born of the Gods. We'll be playing with 3 hero cards. I only have one of each card, so we're going to be using the cards as though they apply to both decks. We'll be using the Harvester, which will let you tap to draw a card and then discard a card. The Explorer, which will let you play with an additional land on each of your turns. And the Vanquisher, which will give your starting hand size an increase by 1 and your maximum hand size an increase by 1. We'll start with 8 cards each. Ajani has an Audacious Infiltrator, Verdant, and Automaton, Tranquil Expanse, Plains, Renegade Map, Plains, and Ajani's Aid will keep that. Tezzeret has Pendulum of Patterns, Quicksmith Spy, Island, Doomed Operative, Essence Extractor, Windkin Raiders, and Pendulum of Patterns. Go ahead and take our free mulligan to see if we can get a better selection of lands. Tezzeret has a Swamp, Barricade Breaker, Windkin Raiders, Tezzeret's Betrayal, Universal Solvent, Dukira Peafowl, Island, and Tezzeret's Simulacrum. It's not great, but it's a little better, so we'll go ahead and keep that as well. We're going to be playing on regular difficulty, which will have 3 turns before the Horde comes charging in, so let's go ahead and get started. For turn number 1, we will play both planes, tap them. We'll play an Audacious Infiltrator. We'll play the Swamp and the Island. We'll tap the Island for a Universal Solvent, and then we will end the turn by using the Harvester. Ajani will draw. He draws a Ghirapur Guide, and Tezzeret draws a Universal Solvent. We'll go ahead and discard the Windkin Raiders, and we'll discard the Verdant Automaton. We'll untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws a Silkweaver Elite. Tezzeret draws a Submerged Boneyard. We'll play the Tranquil Expanse tapped. We'll play the Submerged Boneyard tapped. We'll attack with the Audacious Infiltrator for 3. And then we'll play another Universal Solvent here. And a Renegade Map tapped here. We'll end the turn with another usage of the Harvester. We'll draw a Deadeye Harpooner and a Island. We will discard the Barricade Breaker. And we will discard the Deadeye Harpooner. We'll untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws an Airdrop Aeronauts. Tezzeret draws an Island. We'll play both of the islands. We'll tap and sacrifice the Renegade Map to find a forest. We'll put it into our hand. We'll shuffle. We'll play the forest. We'll tap out, except for the Tranquil Expanse, to play the Silkweaver Elite. When Silkweaver Elite enters the battlefield of a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, draw a card. We'll draw a card. It's an Inspiring Roar. We'll tap 4 to play a Dukira Peafowl here. We'll attack with the Audacious Infiltrator for 3. It's now the Horde's turn. They'll play the top 3 cards, the first one being a Refreshing Elixir, the second one being a Phobos Reaver, and the third one being a Minotaur Younghorn. These 3 will attack. We'll block the Younghorn with the Dukira Peafowl. We'll let the Reaver come through for 2 damage, taking us to 18. The Younghorn will die. And then at the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Ajani draws a Ajani's Aid. Tezzeret draws a Swamp. We'll discard the Swamp. We'll discard the Aeronauts. And then we'll untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws a Forest. Tezzeret draws an Island. We'll play the Island, play the Forest. We'll attack with the Silkweaver Elite and the Audacious Infiltrator for 5. Second main, we'll play another Audacious Infiltrator and a Ghirapur Guide. We'll play Tezzeret's Simulacrum. And then we will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap, and we'll play the top 4 cards, the first one being a Minotaur Younghorn, the second one being an Unquenchable Fury. Each Minotaur cannot be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures. The third one being a Consuming Rage. Whenever a Minotaur attacks this turn, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Destroy that creature at the end of turn. And a Minotaur Younghorn. These will all attack for a total of 12 damage, and we have to block 2 creatures each. I don't think it's worth it. We'll take the 12, and all of the creatures will die. We'll go to 6 life, and then at the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Ajani draws a Plains. Tezzeret draws a Tezzeret Simulacrum. We'll discard Tezzeret's Betrayal. We'll discard the Plains. We'll untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws an Inspiring Roar. Tezzeret draws a Pendulum of Patterns. Ajani will cast an Inspiring Roar, putting a +1/+1 counter on each of the creatures. Tezzeret will cast, for 2 mana, a Pendulum of Patterns, getting us 3 life, taking us up to 9. And then we'll pay 3 more mana to cast a second Tezzeret Simulacrum. We'll attack with both of the Audacious Infiltrators and the Gear Guide for 12 damage. We mill the Plundered Statue. When Plundered Statue is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player draws a card. Ajani will draw a Tranquil Expanse. Tezzeret will draw a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. We'll play the Tranquil Expanse tapped. And then it will be the Horde's turn. The Horde will cast the top 4 cards. The first one being a Phobos Reaver, the second one being a Minotaur Younghorn, the third one being a Minotaur Goreseeker, and the fourth one being a Minotaur Goreseeker. They will all attack. One of the Goreseekers will be blocked by the Dukara Peafowl. The Phobos Reaver will be blocked by the Silkweaver Elite. The Minotaur Younghorn will be blocked by the Tezzeret Simulacrum. And we'll let one Goreseeker go through for 3 damage, taking us down to 6. At the end of the turn, we're going to tap both of the Simulacrums to do 2 more damage to the Horde. They will mill 2. They mill a Massacre Totem. When Massacre Totem is put into the graveyard from anywhere, put the top 7 cards of the Horde's library into the graveyard. So we'll do 1 more, and then 7 more. Then we will untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws an Unbridled Growth. Tezzeret draws a Windkin Raiders. We'll play Inspiring Roar on Ajani's creatures again, putting them all up. Another counter. We'll play Unbridled Growth on a Forest. We'll tap out to play the Windkin Raiders. We'll attack with all of Ajani's team for 19 damage. Alright, the following triggers happen. The Vitality Salve. When Vitality Salve is put to a graveyard from anywhere, each player returns a creature card from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. We'll return the Airdrop Aeronauts over here. The Barricade Breaker over here. We also have a Plundered Statue. Each player will draw a card. We have a Verdant Automaton here, and a Pendulum of Patterns here. And the Altar of Mogus. When Altar of Mogus is put into the graveyard from anywhere, the Horde sacrifices 2 Minotaurs. The Horde sacrifices its only Minotaur, and with no Minotaurs or deck left, the Aether Revolt Planeswalker decks win the day. Game 2, we're playing in hard mode. We'll only have 2 turns before the Horde begins their attack. We'll draw 8 apiece. Ajani has Plains, Forest, Narn Renegade, Inspiring Roar, Tranquil Expanse, Prey Upon, and Silkweaver Elite. It's not optimal, but we'll go ahead and keep it. Tezzeret has Universal Solvent, Dukara Peafowl, Bastion Inventor, Island, Merchant Stockhand, Pendulum of Patterns, Fen Hauler, and Implement of Examination. That is not enough lands. We'll go ahead and send that back. Free Mulligan gives us a Doomed Operative, Tezzeret Simulacrum, Ornithopter, Tezzeret, Master of Metal, Island, and Foundry. Assembler, this is also not great, but we'll go ahead and keep it, hoping that we can get more lands. Alright, turn 1, we will play a Forest and a Tranquil Expanse tapped. Both of the islands. We'll play the Ornithopter, and we'll tap the Forest for the Narn Renegade. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Ajani will draw an Audacious Infiltrator, and Tezzeret will draw an island. We'll keep the island, and we will ditch Tezzeret, Master of Metal. We will ditch the Prey Upon, and then we'll untap. Ajani will draw a Renegade map. Tezzeret will draw a Swamp. We'll play the island and the Swamp. We'll play both of the plains. We'll tap everything here and the Ornithopter as part of improvised cost to play the Foundry Assembler. We'll tap 1 to play the Renegade map tapped. And then we'll tap these 2 to play the Audacious Infiltrator. We will attack with the Narn Renegade for 1, removing a Reckless Minotaur. And then we'll go to the Horde's turn. It'll play the top 3 cards. The first one being Minotaur Younghorn, the second one being a Refreshing Elixir, and the third one being a Phobos Reaver. Will be attacked by all 3. The Phobos Reaver will run right into the Foundry Assembler and will die. We will take 2 from the Minotaur Younghorn to go to 18. And then at the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Ajani will draw a Silkweaver Elite and will discard the Silkweaver Elite. Tezzeret will draw a Submerged Boneyard and will discard the Submerged Boneyard. Alright, we'll untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws a Plains. Tezzeret draws a island. We'll play the island. We'll play the Plains. We'll tap and sacrifice the Renegade map to search for another forest. We'll put it in our hand. We'll shuffle. We'll play the second forest. We'll tap 3 mana to play a Silkweaver Elite. When it enters the battlefield, if a permanent we control left the battlefield this turn, we'll draw a card. We'll draw a airdrop Aeronauts. On this side, we'll play Tezzeret Simulacrum and the Doomed Operative. We will attack with a Narnim Renegade and the Audacious Infiltrator for 4. And then we will go to Tezzeret's turn. They'll untap and cast 4. The first one being a Minotaur Younghorn, the second one being a Minotaur Younghorn, the third one being a Minotaur Younghorn, and the fourth one being a Vitality Salve. Will be attacked by 4 Minotaur Younghorns. 2 of them will get blocked by these 2 creatures, and we'll take 4 to go down to 14. And then at the end of the turn, we will use the Harvester. Ajani will draw a Verdant Automaton and will discard the Verdant Automaton. Tezzeret will draw an island and will discard the island. And then we'll untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws a Tranquil Expanse. Tezzeret draws an island. We'll play the island. We'll play the Tranquil Expanse tapped. We'll tap these 3 and play Tezzeret Simulacrum number 2. We'll tap 5 and play an airdrop Aeronauts. We'll attack with the Renegade, the Infiltrator, the Elite, and the Doomed Operative for 9 damage. And then we'll pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap. It'll cast the top 5 cards. A Minotaur Goreseeker, a Minotaur Goreseeker, a Reckless Minotaur, a Minotaur Goreseeker, and on Unquenchable Fury, each Minotaur cannot be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures. Going to be attacked by the Minotaur Reckless Minotaurs, the Minotaur Goreseekers, and the Minotaur Younghorns. We'll double block a Goreseeker with the Tezzeret Simulacrums. We'll double block another Goreseeker with the Assembler and the Ornithopter, and we'll have to take 11 damage to go to 3. We'll use Tezzeret Simulacrum before it dies to mill 1. 2 Goreseekers die. The Reckless Minotaur dies. The Tezzeret Simulacrum dies. The Ornithopter dies. And then it is the end of the turn. We'll untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws a Gyropor Guide. Tezzeret draws an Ironclad Revolutionary. Ajani will cast the Gyropor Guide. And then we'll tap everything else. Play the Inspiring Roar, putting a +1/+1 counter on all of his creatures. Tezzeret will tap out. Will tap the Tezzeret Simulacrum to mill 1 more before playing the Ironclad Revolutionary, sacrificing the Simulacrum to put 2 +1/+1 counters on the Revolutionary and dealing 2 more damage to the Horde. The Massacre Totem is removed, which, when it's put into the graveyard from anywhere, will remove the top 7 cards. So that's 7 more damage. Alright, we get the Refreshing Elixir, which will get us 10 life, 5 life apiece, to go up to 13. And then on the attack step, we'll attack with the Audacious Infiltrator, the Silkweaver Elite, the Airdrop Aeronauts, the Doomed Operative, the Narnim Renegade, and the Foundry Assembler for 20 damage. Alright, we have a Plundered Statue, which will let each draw a card. Ajani will draw an Unbridled Growth. Tezzeret will draw a Submerged Boneyard. We also have an Altar of Mogus. When it is put into the graveyard from anywhere, the Horde sacrifices 2 Minotaurs. We'll sacrifice the Goreseeker and the Younghorn. And it'll be the Horde's turn. The Horde will untap. It'll cast the next 5 cards. There are only 3 cards left. One will be a Mogus' Chosen tapped, another one will be a Plundered Statue, and the final one will be a Mogus' Chosen tapped. The Minotaur Younghorn will attack. It'll run right into the Ironclad Revolutionary and perish. We will use the Harvester at the end of the turn. Ajani will draw an Unbridled Growth and promptly throw it away. Tezzeret will draw a Swamp and toss the Submerged Boneyard. We'll untap. We'll draw. Ajani draws a Tranquil Expanse. Tezzeret draws a Pendulum of Patterns. Tezzeret will play the Swamp. We'll play the Pendulum of Patterns, getting us 3 life to go up to 16. I just noticed that we cast an Ironclad Revolutionary with only 1 Swamp, and that should not be allowed. Probably shouldn't have won this game, but regardless, we'll play the Tranquil Expanse. and then we'll play the Unbridled Growth on a Plains. We will sacrifice it to draw a card. We'll play the Renegade map tapped, and then we will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap, will attack with both of the Mogis to Chosen. One will run into the Doomed Operative and perish, and the other one will run into the Narnia Renegade. The Mogis Chosens will die, the Renegade dies, the Doomed Operative dies, and the Aether Revolt Planeswalker decks win the day. Aside from the one error that I made with Ironclad Revolutionary, if you saw any other errors, please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more such videos, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching. This was Refresh, and I will see you next time when I pit these two Aether Revolt Planeswalker decks up against the Defeated God Challenge deck from Journey's Mix.